For over 20 years, Dipo Adesina has been a leading wealth strategist dedicated to teaching financial literacy and empowering individuals to build profitable businesses, invest wisely, and secure generational wealth. His practical approach has transformed countless lives, helping entrepreneurs, families, and professionals gain the confidence and clarity needed to elevate their financial journeys. Dipo holds a degree in business administration, an MBA, and has successfully built and managed businesses both locally and globally. Through these experiences, he has discovered a fundamental truth. Wealth is built through discipline, strategic business ownership, and intentional investing. A proven entrepreneur, Dipo built a 7-figure business in under 3 years, demonstrating what is possible when knowledge, strategy, and consistency come together. He believes that with the right guidance and actionable steps, anyone can achieve similar levels of success. Renowned for his relatable teaching style and results-driven strategies, Dipo continues to inspire and equip audiences with the tools needed to protect their assets, grow their wealth, and build financial legacies that endure for generations.
The next session we're going into promises to protect what we're about to build. See, no matter how you cut it, no matter what generation you are as an immigrant here, you still have a sense of home and a sense of those who rely on you in other places. And therefore, what you get must multiply, it must build, essentially. And I think that is the focal point of this next session. Please welcome to the microphone to lead us, thought leader Dipo Adesina. Please put your hands together for him. Oh, absolutely.
Awesome. Great afternoon, everyone. Great afternoon, everyone. Awesome. It's my pleasure to definitely be here this afternoon. I'm extremely humbled anytime I get the opportunity to come and speak to people about wealth, about building generational wealth. It's something that I always jump at because I know that it puts us in a position to be more financially well off, but also importantly, making sure that the future generation are also well off. So today you probably have already heard about some of the things I'm going to be talking about, but I'm going to be painting it from a different light so that way it can resonate a bit more and also provoke you to take action. All right? So with that being said, I don't know if my slides can be put up so we can kind of get things up and running. Okay, perfect. So just a brief introduction of who I am. My main area of expertise is in the area of money, helping people to become more financially intelligent when it comes to how they use their money, but more importantly, how do you protect what you've already built and how do you transfer it to the next generation successfully? So, quick question, and this is a rhetorical question that you don't have to answer. When you're no longer here, would your loved ones be able to survive without your income? So if you're a business owner, you run a business, or you're working 9 to 5, it's a rhetorical question, but I want you to answer that question internally. And the second question is, if the answer is yes, how will they manage the assets that you leave behind? These are two powerful questions that most people have never thought about. Because we live in a world where it's all about acquiring assets. If you're into real estate, how can I acquire more properties? If you're a business owner, how can I scale the business to the next level? If you're working, you're making $100,000 now, and you're thinking, how can I make $150,000, $200,000? But the question is, once your time is up, then what happens to everything that you've worked hard for? I want you to think about that. couple of months ago, I came across this Bible verse. Now, I'm not taking you to church, but I want you to glean from the principles I'm going to be sharing from this. And this just kind of opened my eyes as to how most people actually feel. Now, the wisest man, according to the scriptures, that ever lived said, I began to hate all the hard work I had done, because I saw that the people who live after me will get the things that I worked for. I will not be able to take them with me. Some other person will control everything I worked and studied for, and I don't know if the person will be wise or foolish. This also is senseless. So I became sad about all the work that I have done. So in other words, when you get to a point when you're no longer here, there are people who are going to inherit all of your assets, either your spouse, your kids, and if you're like some people who have properties back home that your spouse don't know about, your in-laws or relatives will inherit those assets. He says that I don't know what will happen to these things. Are they going to take good care of everything that I've labored for, or are they going to misuse it? This is a very thought-provoking question that most people have never thought about. That you've been grinding, you've been building businesses, but then what happens to all my assets, not only while I'm here, but for the next generation? Which now brings up a very important question that I want to ask everyone this afternoon. Why do most families lose their wealth? Meaning, one generation builds it, but by the time it gets to the next generation, everything is completely gone. There are three reasons that I'm going to be sharing with you this afternoon. There are more reasons, but we're going to stick with three. Number one, poor financial education. Study shows that 70% of wealthy families lose their wealth by the second generation, and 90% by the third generation. And it's not because of lack of money, but because of lack of knowledge and financial planning. I've been fortunate to study quite a number of wealthy people. And if we go all the way back to the 1800s to the wealthiest man on the planet, the Vanderbilt, millions of dollars. But by the time they got to the third generation, everybody was broke. All right? The reason is because the wealth, the mindset was not transferred to the next generation. So as much as we talk about generational wealth and helping our kids to live a better life, if you don't transfer the value of money into the minds of your children and their children, the chances are that the things that you've worked hard for, that you're laboring for, may not necessarily get passed down to the next generation. Number two, poor investment and spending habit. Without structures like a trust controlling distributions, your family, your children will quickly deplete your assets. There's a study that shows that within 93 days of children inheriting wealth from their families, the entire asset that they've accumulated will be completely gone. 93 days. And the third reason, or before we get to that, this is an example of that one of my partners actually told me. Two sisters who had a mom, and their mom happened to pass away. So talking about generational wealth, the daughters were able to inherit about $300,000. From the moment they inherited the $300,000, the eldest daughter, which was, I think she was 20 years old at the time, inherited $150,000. She decided to go on a shopping spree. What do you expect from a 20-year-old who lacked financial knowledge on how money works, just instantly receiving $150,000? As a matter of fact, when they sent me her social media page, you can see this young girl traveling all around the world, living a very flamboyant lifestyle, and you will think that this person is successful, not knowing that she just came across a lump sum of money one time, and within months, the money was completely gone. Fortunately, her sister, who's the youngest, has a little bit more reasoning, all right? And she was reaching out for help because she got all this money and she didn't want to squander it, all right? So when you understand that, when you talk about generational wealth, it's not just money that you're passing down to your kids. You have to be able to teach them certain values that makes them to start to see money from a different standpoint than most people. And the last reason is no estate planning. 60% or more of Americans do not have an estate plan. Meaning, from the moment that they've accumulated their assets and they pass away, they don't have any guideline, no instructions whatsoever on what happens to everything that I've worked for once I'm no longer here. Once again, the reason why most people don't do these things is because they're not taught these principles. All right? We're taught how to make money. Well, actually, we're not taught how to make money. We were told to go to school to learn so that when we graduate, we make money, but nobody actually ever sat you down one time to say, listen, when you start earning money, you have to start investing. You have to create an estate plan. You have to have a wealth strategy. Nobody has ever done that. And I could be wrong. If you went to school and you were taught that, let me see your hands. So here's my thought process. How does society expect people to be successful when we were trained and conditioned from a young age, from kindergarten to primary school, secondary schoto university, master's, and PhD, and not once did we ever learn on how to manage or invest money. But then when we graduate, they toss us out there to go and work, to make money, and then you make all this money and you don't know what to do with it. Very interesting phenomenon. Which now brings me to a very important part of what we'll be talking about this afternoon, which is the hierarchy of financial needs. Most people have heard of the Maslow hierarchy of needs, which we learned in school. But there's a financial hierarchy of needs, which means that if you're going to build wealth, you need to be able to follow this hierarchy all the way from the bottom to the top. Now, the baseline, everybody's good on that if you're in this room. Meaning, you have your basic needs met. So you have your food, your shelter, your home, everything that you need just to be able to survive is 100% good. All right, so you really don't want for money. You can be struggling financially, maybe living paycheck to paycheck, or your business is not really as buoyant as you would like it to be, but you're still able to meet your basic needs. Are you with me so far? Yes. Okay. The second level of the hierarchy is what we call financial safety. Now, some people sometimes skip a level, meaning they are in a rush to get to the other levels without understanding that any level that you skip, if care is not taken, you will always come back to the baseline because you skipped this step. The second step is financial safety, meaning you've built emergency fund and you also have insurance contracts, all right? Which you can see has about 47% of adults will be able to currently have 3 months of worth of living expense. So in other words, according to studies, most Americans are just 2 paychecks away from filing for bankruptcy. If you miss 2 paychecks, if your business starts bringing in income for 2 months, you probably will have to file for bankruptcy. Because once again, financial education, most people never built a system that allows their money to work for them so that when they stop working, money's still coming in. All right? Most people do not have income protection, meaning that if for whatever reason you can no longer able to go to work, there is something that's causing money to still come in. If for some reason, God forbid, you're no longer here, something must be able to replace your income so that way your family can still maintain the same lifestyle. The third hierarchy is accumulating wealth. This is where we talk about building investment portfolio, saving for retirement, and paying down debt. And then we go to the fourth, long-term care, retirement savings, etc. Here's what I want you to pay attention to. The top of the hierarchy, legacy. If you do everything right at the bottom and you fail to have an estate plan, you set up your children, your spouse for possible failure without a proper estate plan. All right? And when we talk about estate plan at the top of the hierarchy, we're also talking about tax strategies. The gentleman, Mr. Ike, that just left, actually touched on a lot of things I'm going to be talking about. Many of our people in the African community do not understand how the system works in this country. There are many people who own businesses, they don't understand tax laws and how tax laws can favor their businesses. There are many people who are working, but they don't have strategies to reduce their tax liabilities. They don't have strategies on how to pass on their wealth to the next generation in a very structured and efficient manner. But the other side of the people, they understand this hierarchy. They understand how to reduce your tax liabilities to completely zero. You know, sometimes you'll watch the news and you'll hear that, this wealthy person, is making all this billions and they're not paying taxes, and you get upset. We get upset. But they're simply using the tax code inside of the book to their own favor. So if you don't understand the tax code as a business owner and you're running a business, you've probably been paying more taxes than you should have been. I'm not a tax expert. I'm not a CPA. I'm a businessman. But in order for me to prosper in this country, you have to understand how the laws and systems work. And that's why it's so important to be in rooms like this, because you get to hear from other people who are smarter and people who have more knowledge in areas that you may not have knowledge in. So the question that I want to ask, and maybe anybody can guess this answer: what financial solution can you leverage to climb up the hierarchy? There are different strategies, there are different instruments, but there's one financial solution that can help you to at least accomplish 60 to 80% of what I just talked about in this slide right here. Anybody take a guess? All right, I'm hearing rambling. Just say it out loud. Insurance. Insurance. Investments as well, right? There's so many different tools, but one of the most construed financial solution that most people have not yet understood is this one solution right here. But wealthy people have been using this for over 100 years, and I'm going to break it down for you. Because once again, we're talking about strategies. How do you put strategies in place to ensure that you're able to build generational wealth and protect your asset? So this one solution allows you to create emergency fund, grow and accumulate money, used as a retirement supplement, long-term care, children's education, tax planning. All right? How do you use this to reduce your tax liabilities, estate planning, and finally, generational wealth? I talked about the Vanderbilt, the wealthiest family in the world in the 1800s. The second wealthiest family in the world after the Vanderbilt are the Rockefellers. 6 generations later, they're still billionaires. 6 generations. The Vanderbilt, when they had a family meeting, a reunion in 1973, from becoming the wealthiest family in the world, by 1973, not a single one of them were millionaires. Because there were no structures and there were no systems in place to help to continue to grow that wealth. All right, are you still with me? All right, so what is life insurance? I'm just going to define it and then we move right on. In its simplest definition, it is a contract between you and an insurance company, meaning if anything happens to you contractually, they are obligated to execute whatever is on that agreement terms. All right, from a dollar standpoint. Now, The challenge is that most people have reduced it to just a term where when somebody dies, you get paid or your family get paid. But what I'm sharing with you this afternoon is how can you use it as a wealth generational vehicle, just like how wealthy people have been using it for decades. I talked about tax codes and tax laws. There are 3 tax laws or tax code in the Internal Revenue Code that I want you to take a picture of and pay very close attention to. The first tax code is tax code 101A. I didn't write this, ladies and gentlemen, the IRS did. This is one of the only resources or codes that allows you to transfer proceeds from a cash value life insurance to the next generation 100% tax-free. The second tax code, 72E, it allows you to put money in a life insurance contract and have that money grow tax deferred without being impacted by the volatility of the market. So number 1, transfer tax free, and number 2, allow you to grow your money tax deferred. Tax deferred simply means your money gets to grow, you don't pay taxes now, but there's a possibility that you'll pay taxes in the future. And my favorite out of all the 3 is the last one, 7702, which simply means that when I get to the point when I want to start accessing my money, all the money that I've grown tax deferred, I can now access that money tax free in one vehicle. That's only one aspect. I'm being generous, so I'll give you one more tax code. This one, most people have never heard about. Remember, we're talking about strategies on building wealth, preserving wealth, and also transferring wealth. This is code 412E3, also in the Internal Revenue Code. This is a type of plan, a pension plan, that allows you to use a life insurance contract, and in some cases plus annuities, to get you to produce predictable, guaranteed retirement plan. Now, meaning it can reduce your tax liabilities, accelerate your retirement savings, and also allow you to move cash from your business into a protected tax advantage structure. Now, before I move further, this is strictly for people who are high income earners. Remember I said earlier, there's certain things that you won't know unless you're in certain categories. If you are a doctor, for example, you run your own practice, you're making $500, $1 million a year. If you're a dentist, an engineer, and you are at that high level, you are in the highest tax bracket in this country. Does anybody know what the highest tax bracket is? What is it? 37. You should know that, because the more money you make in this country, the more you're climbing up the tax bracket. So your goal is to figure out, how do I escape being in a higher tax bracket? All right? Most people are making a lot of money. They don't even know what tax bracket they're in. So if you are a physician and you are up there, or you are making significant money as a business owner, you are already classified in the 37 tax bracket. Meaning 37% to 40% of what you're earning is going back to the government. So you can work for 3 months, you can work for 4 months, and you're literally working for the IRS. Now, let's take a look at a case study. A business owner who earns $900,000, all right, and his goal is to retire in the next 9 to 12 months. Let's look at how this strategy can drastically help him reduce his tax liabilities. Without the 412 plan, his taxable income is $900,000. So that means he's paying anywhere between $350,000 to $400,000 every year in taxes. That's more than some families make in 5 years, right? With the 412 plan, it allows this person to contribute anywhere from $150,000 to $320,000 into this plan every single year. All right? So we're talking about being able to go from $900,000 to reducing your taxable income to somewhere between $580 to $750. Now, here's the beautiful part. The money you would have paid to the IRS, you can now put it into the plan, into a separate account, and have that money as your retirement fund, and have that money grow 100% grow in a safe environment where you're guaranteed never to lose money. So all you're simply doing is restructuring some of the money that you're currently spending now into a different bucket. Okay? Let me give you another case study, and we'll be done in the next several minutes. A business owner. Can I see your hand if you're a business owner? All right. Quite a number of people. Now, a lot of people are business owners, but the income level may be different. But I'm just giving you ideas and strategies on how to leverage some of these vehicles, not only to reduce your tax liabilities, not only to help you create more income, but also build generational wealth. You have a business owner who's into real estate, and he decides to put $200,000 a year into these type of insurance contracts. By the 5th year, he's already put in $1 million. Now, you don't have to do this. This is just a scenario. It can be any amount. But one thing you'll notice is that by the 5th year, how much do you see in that 5th column? A little over $1 million. He never has to contribute towards the plan again, but the money he's contributed continues to grow indefinitely, while still having a death benefit for generational wealth. Now, here is how people have been using this for the last 100 years. You may not know it, you may know it, but I'm just giving you simple strategies on what wealthy people do when it comes to asset protection and being able to build wealth. If you are a business owner right now, you probably have money just sitting in your bank doing absolutely nothing. You probably have savings doing absolutely nothing. But people who understand strategies will decide to put their money in an insurance contract mainly for this particular strategy. Now, how much did I say he had by the 5th year? $1 million. He's a real estate investor, so as opposed to money staying in the bank, he leverages this type of contract. Well, let's assume that he has a real estate development that he wants to do, and it cost him $250,000. He calls the insurance company and requests a loan of $250,000. How much did he have? $1 million. But he's requesting a loan for $250,000. Now, here's what I want you to understand. When he's asking for this loan, the money is not coming out from his particular account. You follow me so far? The insurance company loans him $250,000 from their money, while his money remains as a collateral. So as long as the policy stays in effect, his money continues to grow while he's using the insurance company's money for his own business ventures. Now, here's the math. He took out a loan from the insurance company for $250,000. He's going to pay it off in 10 years. And the interest rate that he's being charged is 4.5%. So his monthly payment to pay back the company is about $2,500. The total payment at the end of the 10th month is $310,000. Are you with me so far? Is the math mathing? Okay. Remember I said that his money never left his account. All right? In the same 10-year span, while he's paying back the insurance company $310,000, with his money being in his account, just the $250,000, not the whole million, the $250,000 equivalent would have yielded $407,000 simply by using OPM, other people's money, while his money continues to grow. That is what we call leverage. So when you talk about strategies, as a business person, When you accrue interest on the loans that you take out for your business, what is that loan considered? I mean, what is the interest considered as a business person? Oh, boy. Okay, let me, all right. If you went to Bank of America right now, they give you a loan for $50,000, all right? And they charge you interest, and let's say the interest you paid on that $50,000 is $10,000. What can you do with that $10,000? You can write it off. So even though you're using their money as accruing interest, you can still write off the interest on your money, all right? So this is just some couple of examples of people you may know who have leveraged these types of strategies. Doris Christopher, right? If you've ever heard of Pamper Chef, so she created Pamper Chef, eventually sold the business to Warren Buffett for, what is that? $900 million. She was able to start the business because she leveraged the funds from her policy to start the business. Right? You know people like John McCain. You know people like Walt Disney. There are tons of people who understand how these particular policies work and how you can leverage them. All right? So a couple examples for you all to look at. And then finally, before we move on to the last phase, we talked about how one solution can help you climb the entire hierarchy of financial needs. What this policy allows you to do, and most people don't understand how important this is. My father died 3 years ago, 61 years old. We would have sworn that my dad would live forever to the 80s and 90s. Healthy guy, very jovial. He's number 7 out of 10 kids, all right? And all of a sudden, he just woke up when he wasn't feeling too good. So we flew him from Nigeria. We flew him here, stayed with my sister in North Carolina, and did all the tests as much as possible. The doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with the man, all right? Eventually, went back to Nigeria, and a couple of months later, he passed away. He had all manners of sick. They could not figure. You know you got a problem if you're in the United States and they can't figure out what's going on with you, all right? Chronic, critical, all manners of illnesses that took his life and cut his life short. I didn't know what I know now. All right? We're constantly learning and growing. I didn't know that you could get a policy on your parent, and if they ever get to a point where they need any type of, they fall into any type of illness, you can tap into the death benefit of the policy for them to take care of their health. I didn't know that. The moment he passed away, I took out a $250,000 policy on my mom. Not because I'm thinking that my mom is going to die, but because wisdom demands that, listen, as she's getting older, there is a possibility that she may need some type of long-term care. But one thing that's also guaranteed is that at one point in time, she is going to pass away, right? So when I understood that, it made absolute sense. See, we're talking about how do you put systems and structures in place to protect you, your family, and the future generations. And all we've been talking about so far, ladies and gentlemen, is just one single financial solution. Study reveals, and this is proven, that nearly 70% of people in their retirement age will need some type of long-term care. So that means if we took all the people in this room, and if you're above 60 and we lined you up here, according to studies, 70% of you will need long-term care at some point in time in your life. So the question is, do you wait until that time, or do you prepare just in case something happens? We don't pray for any. Who prays to get sick here? Nobody. But it's part of financial planning, all right? So what does this policy come with? Meaning, if you ever fall into any one of these categories, irrespective of your age, critical illness, chronic illness, or terminal illness, you can tap into the death benefit of your policy, because at that point, well, let me ask this question. If somebody becomes ill under one of these 3 conditions, are they still able to go to work? Nah. Your income stops. There are 2 primary reasons why people lose their job. Number 1, due to illness, and number 2, due to death. All right? So this allows you to protect your income just in case something happens to your health. All right, and I wish, like I said before, I wish this was something that I had in place when my dad was still alive. All right. So resources for those of you who like to read and kind of be more acquainted with how these systems work, you can tap into these books. Very powerful books. You can see the one to the far right which says, "What would the Rockefellers do?" Part of the reason why they're still wealthy today is because of the structures and systems they have in place till date. All right. So finally, as we move towards the last part of the presentation, I'll be out of your way, is the importance of estate planning. I asked the question earlier that if something were to happen to you today or your business, would your family be in a good position to manage all the assets that you've acquired? And if the answer is no, it simply means that you do not have adequate estate planning in place. All right? So what is estate planning? In its simplest definition, it is the process of arranging and managing your assets so that way they're distributed according to your wishes. Right? So there are three things important in this. Number one, who will inherit what? How and when will they receive it? And who will manage your affairs when you're no longer here? You have to be able to answer those three questions. So as you're watching me right now and listening, I want you to ask yourself that question. If anything happens to me right now, right, who will inherit what? Who will manage it? When will they get it? And who will make sure that my loved ones get the things that I've worked so hard for? And this is where a trust comes into play. All right? I'm not going to ask how many people in here currently have a trust, but trust me, you need a trust. All right? Every single person in this room, if you have a family, if you have assets tied to your name, you need a trust. All right? And that's the definition. I'm not going to bore you with reading it. So the question is, what happens if you do not have a trust? What happens when a person passes away and they don't have a trust in place? They have to go through a legal process known as probate, where the court gets to decide how your assets will be allocated. Here are a couple of things you need to understand about probate. Number one, the waiting period is about 6 to 12 months. Meaning, when a person passes away, your family don't just automatically inherit your house. Your family don't just automatically get access to your bank account. You think so. You think so. You think that if something happens to you right now, oh, I have $200,000 in my bank account, my family will be okay. Yes, you have it, but they don't have it. Right? There is nothing you own right now that automatically gets transferred to your family once you're no longer in the picture. The moment you exit, all your assets freeze. Because at that point, the banks, people need to know, well, she owns this, but who do we say owns who gets these things? That is where the court gets to decide what happens to all the things that you work so hard for, if you do not have a trust. So you see how, people go through unnecessary stress just because they don't know, right? Public record, meaning everything you own now becomes out there to the public. So if you know anybody that has passed away, that don't own a trust, you can go in public record in Maryland and you'll be able to see everything they own throughout their entire lifetime. Because they didn't put it in a trust. Now everybody sees it. All the debt they own, you see it. All the asset they own, you see it. All right? Appointed guardian. Please listen if you have kids. If you have young kids and you don't have any type of documentation in place to say that if anything happens to me or my spouse, this person is responsible for doing X, Y, and Z, unfortunately, the court gets to decide who takes care of your kids. Just because you didn't have a single document called a trust in place. Costly fees. It's not free. Not only do your parents, your family have to wait 6 to 12 months, some cases it can be longer than that. All right, Prince, the famous, musician, his probate process, you would think wealthy people know these things. It took 6 years for probate process, for all his assets freezing. All right, so not only are you paying for all these things, but you're also having your family going through unnecessary stress because you didn't have it in place. So I'll give you a couple of examples and then I'm done. 5 minutes. All right. Case study number 1, James. He dies with $500,000 worth of assets, 0 trust in place. Okay. He goes through a probate process, the whole 9 yards. Court attorney fees, assuming 5%, money that he didn't have to pay or his family didn't have to pay, now comes out of his estate. $25,000. All right. So as a result of not having a trust in place, only $475,000 gets paid out if he doesn't have any debt. All right. Case study number 2, Nicole. Same asset, $500,000, but she has a trust in place. What does trust do? Bypasses probate. So that means nothing is coming out, and she's getting $500,000 paid to her family in asset if she doesn't have any debt in place. Which now brings up my important statement, all right? That just because you have a trust in place does not mean that all your debt gets wiped away. It doesn't mean everything that you owe people completely gets wiped away. No. It doesn't disappear, all right? They'll still come after it. But it just means that you don't have to go to probate process. This is where life insurance comes into play as asset protection. We're still only talking about one single financial solution. How does this work from an asset protection standpoint? A trust basically makes sure that your assets transfers to your family privately. But insurance gives you liquidity. So that means that they don't have to sell your assets to pay off your debt if you have life insurance in place. Let's take a look at what that looks like. Nicole dies with $500,000, all right? And she has a trust in place. Congratulations, Nicole. But she also has debts in place. So $20,000 in medical bills, pay property taxes, $25,000 in credit card debt. So that means technically $50,000 will come from her asset to pay off her debt. Are you following me so far? All right. Well, what if she owns her $500,000 asset, but she decides to get a $200,000 life insurance contract? When she passes away, $200,000 gets paid out. Hopefully she put that money inside of a trust, right? Or the life insurance in the trust. Out of the $200,000, $50,000 comes out and pays for the debt. So that means her asset is still in place. And more importantly, now they have $150,000 left over from the life insurance proceeds that gets added to an overall asset. This is how you protect your asset from being liquidated should anything happen to you. This is how you transfer your asset to the next generation, so that way they do not have to reduce their lifestyle just because you're no longer in the picture. All right? There's so many other things that I'd like to talk about today, but once again, I'm working with a very limited time. But I do hope that the little that you've heard today will provoke you to take some sort of action when it comes to protecting your family and protecting your asset. Now, here's a very famous quote that I think it's important for you all to take note of. If you do not have a will or a trust or a plan for your estate, then the government has one for you. There is either you're on the right-hand side or you're on the left-hand side. There is no in-between. If you don't have structures in place to protect your asset, it is 100% guaranteed that the government will help you out. But the unfortunate part, like I always tell people, is that it is a very costly process. Something that you can get done for a few dollars, structures and systems that you can put together in place now can potentially cost your family thousands of dollars in the future. So with that being said, I hope you've learned one or two things from this session. My name is Dipo Adesina. Feel free to follow me on social media if you don't already follow me. And thank you so much and have a great day.
I moved to the United States. And after 2 years of no meaningful progress, a friend introduced me to FinServ Pro. They assisted me with my ITIN application, otherwise known as Tax ID. Today, I have my driver's license, bank account, employer identification number, and a small business. This is my FinServ Pro story. FinServ Pro is a certified acceptance agent and do not send passports to the IRS. Terms and conditions apply. Contact FinServ Pro today.